The U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has arrived in Ukraine amid mounting fear of a Russian invasion. Mr. Blinken will hold discussions with President Volodymyr Zelensky in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, before meeting European allies in Berlin and his Russian counterpart in Geneva on Friday. We have a report.
We have tried to make clear that there are two paths.
The United States top diplomat is beginning a hastily arranged diplomatic push to defuse the crisis over Ukraine and prevent what Washington and its allies fear may be an imminent Russian invasion. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was greeted by Ukrainian officials, including Deputy Foreign Minister Dmytro Sernik, on an icy moonlit tarmac as he disembarked. Mr. Blinken also holds talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv on Wednesday before meeting with allies in Berlin on Thursday. On Friday, he will meet with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, in Geneva, Switzerland.
The President wanted me to come and have the opportunity to speak directly with you, with all of our colleagues here, about the week of intensive diplomacy that we've just engaged in and completed with Russia. And to consult and coordinate on the next steps, including my meeting on Friday with Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov. Across all of our engagements, we have made clear the clear preference for finding a diplomatic resolution to the conflict and to de-escalate the situation.
Mr. Blinken's trip aims to emphasize U.S. support for Ukraine and impress the need for de-escalation on neighboring Russia, which has massed troops along the shared border. On the other hand, Russia says it has no plans for an invasion. Tensions remain high near Ukraine's borders, with Russian troops deployed in neighboring Belarus for what have been termed joint military exercises. Mr. Lavrov also rejected U.S. claims that Russia was preparing a pretext for a military operation in Ukraine as, quote, total disinformation. Mr. Blinken's visit to Kyiv on Wednesday was described as a bid to reinforce the United States' commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity before talks in Berlin on Thursday with German, French and British counterpart. The German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock, who visited Moscow on Tuesday, has warned that any further military escalation would carry a high price for the Russian regime, including economic, political and strategic.
For more on the disturbing developments between Russia and Ukraine, an international affairs analyst, Jonah Egiga, joins me virtually now from Russia. Good to have you join us.
Thank you so much, Precious. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So there are different theories as to why this is happening now in Russia, or as to why Russia is stoking this tension as it is right now. Some people believe that this is really about getting the West to talk to him, that's President Putin. Other analysts believe that Russia is trying to destabilize Europe and then keep the continental balance of power in its favor. But there are also a group of analysts who believe that Russia is trying to bring Ukraine back to its sphere of influence. Why do you think this is happening at this moment?
All right. Once again, thank you so much for having me. And I would love to state categorically that Russia has got no intentions to invade Ukraine because, like we all know, Ukraine used to be a part of the USSR, and they've got so much ties that has to go down as countries that were together. And as Russia as a country, I tend to believe that almost every Russian has got one relative or the other that lives in Ukraine, you know. So it's quite impossible to invade people who are almost like your sibling, you know. I don't think it's possible. But then, like you rightly pointed out, all we know is that Russia just needs to talk to the US and make very significant conversations with NATO. That's all that is being spoken of right now.
You live in Russia. What is the feeling on the streets of Russia? Are there fears that there could be a cross-border or that cross-border offensive could be on the cards?
Well, the words on the street, I have spoken to so many of my friends, and they're like, it's really not possible, you know, because it's a kind of operation that Vladimir Putin and his associates and committee of ministers wouldn't even want to engage, because he would have a fierce battle even from the Russians himself, you know. And like I said, Russia and Ukraine are family, and when family fight, I think they always have this way to go about their problems. And the word on the street is it's not possible. It's not possible. Russia has given their demands to NATO, and they've given their demands to the US also, and these demands are really not heard. But we hope that when Sergei Lazarev, that's the Russian Prime Minister, meets with Antony Blinken on Friday in Geneva, there would be way more positive conversations, you know, about this.
But is there optimism in Russia that there's a possibility of diplomatic diplomacy could yield results? Because on one hand, people are saying keep the diplomatic channels open, but on the other hand, we're seeing the movement of troops across Europe. There is the movement of artillery, opposition and of artillery as well. Sweden just moved troops to Gotland. So there seem to be one hand diplomacy, one hand movement of troops. So is there optimism in Russia that these diplomatic talks would yield any result?
Well, I think Sergei Lazarev has already insisted and said, in terms of that number, that the activity of the troops on the border is simply drills, and which Russia has also pointed out that NATO has also got its army over at the same border. And I don't think it's anything wrong if you also anticipate what is coming your way, and that's what Russia is simply doing, you know. So it's simply just some military drills happening on the border. Russia has pointed out that it has no intentions to invade Ukraine. Sorry, I beg your pardon. So it's simply military drills.
When you say anticipate what's coming your way, are there fears in Russia that Russia could be attacked? Because from what we know, Russia is the one on the offensive, positioning troops on the border between Russia and Ukraine. So are there fears in Russia that Russia could be attacked?
Well, obviously there are fears in Russia that Russia could be attacked, because Ukraine has over time, since 2014, where we had the issue of the annexation of Crimea back to Russia, which it originally was in the first place, NATO has always been so bothered with why Russia has to take Crimea. It's a very important geographical point for Russia, and Russia has insisted that Crimea is Russian, you know. And of course, there are obviously fears that there might be some invasion from NATO, and Russia is simply just trying to do the same thing to protect its home, and that's all.
So we see a tough talking President Putin on the international news media. He seems to be resolute as to this is what I want, and if I don't get it, which is I do not want Ukraine to be part of NATO. And he's asked for this very maximalist. He has this maximalist demands, but in Russia, what sense do you get? Are you seeing Vladimir Putin who feels like the show of force is working, or a very frustrated Vladimir Putin who feels like he's been ignored?
Well, like as soon as we had the conflict way back in 2014, where we had the annexation of Crimea, we had sanctions, right? And these sanctions, Russia has pointed out and has shown that no matter how much sanctions we get from the US and from other parts of Europe, we would still be a country, you know, we've survived it. And Putin is still trying to make them understand that, see, no matter how much sanctions you throw at us, we would still survive. And Russia has significantly shown that it's a country that can live on its own without world forces or dependence on world forces. So, yeah, he's talking tough, and I think he's doing what he's supposed to do too.
For Putin, how should diplomacy proceed? We know that, like you rightly noted, Blinken will be meeting with Sergei Lavrov in Geneva after the meeting in Kyiv. What are they grounds for compromise? Are they willing to compromise on their demands? How do they think that diplomacy should proceed?
Well, we wouldn't know if there will be grounds for compromise if they don't meet in Geneva on Friday. So I think we should wait for them to meet in Geneva and discuss, and then probably see the possible solutions. Like I said, we've had sanctions here since 2014, and we've lived with the sanctions, all right? Having to see the Russian ruble crash to the dollar on almost 80 to 90% in 6 years is a very significant economic stress, for having to goods and services triple, not even double, triple in such short amount of time. I think Russia would just want to have these discussions first and make Blinken have to take his decisions with his president when he goes back home.
Absolutely. These sanctions are taking a hit on the Russian economy. But they have been one of the biggest issues on the front burner in Europe this week has been the Nord Stream 2 natural gas pipeline that links Russia and Germany. There have been calls for Germany to sanction or shut it down. If that were to happen, it doesn't look like it's going to happen because of the body language in Germany, people are pretty much, or lawmakers are pretty much divided on this. But if that were to happen, how do you think Putin would react to that? And what would that mean for the Russian economy?
I think aside having to supply to Germany or supply to other parts of Europe, Russia has got its other business partners it could supply to. You saw similar circumstances when we had the issues with Ukraine, and Russia had to deal with them as if they were dealing with not business partners, or as if they were dealing with everybody else. I think Russia has got its business partners, and if Germany has to do that, I think that's really on them. Russia would still survive,
So before we let you go, it will seem like everyone has, or the world has, a particular narrative of the Russian president as a man who liked to stoke tensions, a man who was the attention of the West, a man who feels ignored. You live in Russia. Talk to us about what exactly you know that you think that the world might be missing.
All right, I just think the notion and the way people regard him isn't so correct, because he's somebody who has time over time showed his loyalty to his people. He showed he's ready to lay his life down for his people, and that's what he's doing, and he's going to go at it at no cost, all right, at every cost possible. He's got and every resource. That's what he's been doing. And that's similar to what the former president of Ukraine, that's Poroshenko, was also doing with Ukraine. And well, I just think every leader would want to put his people's needs first, and that's what Vladimir Putin has always been doing.
All right, thank you so much for talking to us, international affairs analyst Jonah Egiga.
Thank you for having me, Precious.